For as long as anyone could remember, Attic Annie watched the world through a tiny attic window. The old brick house stood alone at the edge of forgotten fields. Part of it had been damaged during the war long before Annie arrived, and over the years wind, rain, and time had done the rest. The lower floors were cracked and broken, and the winding staircase that led down from the attic groaned and creaked whenever the house shifted in the weather. Annie had hidden there in 1985. She had once belonged to a little girl who loved her very much, but when frightening times came, Annie was tucked away in the attic for safekeeping. She had waited patiently for the little girl to return. Days became months, months became years, years became decades. At first, Annie counted them. Then she stopped. The only thing she could see from her tiny attic window were endless fields of red poppies dancing in the wind. Every morning she watched them. Every evening she watched them. They became her only friends. Sometimes curious people would wander near the old house. "That place is haunted," they would whisper. And Annie, frightened that someone might discover her hiding place, would rattle loose shutters, knock old boxes over, and make spooky sounds from the attic. The visitors always ran away. "See?" Annie would tell herself. "The outside world is haunted." So she stayed hidden, and hidden, and hidden. Until one spring morning she looked out her window and gasped. The poppy fields were gone. Where red flowers had once stretched to the horizon, there were roads, buildings, and things Annie had never seen before. For the first time in many years, she wondered what had happened to the world. Carefully, she approached the old staircase. Each step groaned beneath her tiny shoes. Down she went, past dusty trunks, past broken furniture, and past rooms where sunlight streamed through shattered windows. Her heart beat faster with every step. When she finally reached the front door, she hesitated. Then she pushed it open. Warm sunlight touched her pale face, the same face that had not felt the sun since 1985. She closed her eyes. The light felt strange, wonderful, and sad. Very sad. Because suddenly she remembered why she had waited so long. She had been waiting for her little girl. Annie stepped onto the grass and looked around. The world was completely different. Cars moved where fields once grew. People carried glowing devices in their hands. The old paths had vanished. Everything had changed. And deep in her heart, she knew the little girl who had loved her so many years ago was gone now, grown into a grandmother long ago. Tears rolled down Annie's cheeks. For the first time since leaving the attic, she began to cry. She wandered for hours, following country roads until she discovered something beautiful. An orchard. Apple blossoms danced in the breeze. Birds sang among the branches, and tiny laughter floated through the air. Annie followed the sound. There beneath the trees she found a gathering of the Orchardkin. Beth was arranging flowers. Cherry sat inside a teacup much too large for her. Poppy was gathering fallen petals. Anna was helping braid ribbons through the orchard fence. Pudding Pop was carrying a basket of treats. Little Dumpling was rolling down a grassy hill and giggling. Bluebell was weaving tiny crowns from wildflowers. Magnolia sat beneath a tree sketching blossoms. Pansy was collecting seeds for the garden. And Kevin was trying very hard to balance 3 apples on top of his head. The Orchardkins stopped when they saw her. Annie froze. Her eyes were red from crying. Her dress was dusty from years in the attic. She looked lonely. Very lonely. Before Annie could say a word, little Cherry hurried forward. "Oh dear," she whispered. "You've been crying." Then Beth stepped beside her. "You look like you've been carrying a heavy story." Annie nodded. The tears started all over again. "I waited too long," she sobbed. "The world changed. The poppies disappeared. My little girl is gone." For a moment nobody spoke. Then Bluebell gently took Annie's hand. Poppy tucked a bright red flower into her curls. Pudding Pop offered her a warm honey cake. Little Dumpling wrapped both arms around her waist. Magnolia smiled softly. Pansy handed her a tiny packet of flower seeds. Kevin removed one of the apples balanced on his head and placed it in Annie's hands. "It's not much," he said, "but it's yours." Then Beth spoke the words Annie would remember forever. "You may have lost the place you came from, but that doesn't mean you've lost where you belong." The orchard grew quiet. The breeze rustled through the blossoms. And for the first time since 1985, Attic Annie no longer felt alone. That evening, the Orchardkin prepared a welcome feast beneath lanterns hanging from the trees. They listened as Annie told stories of the attic window, the poppy fields, the dusty trunks, and the years she spent watching the seasons pass. No one laughed. No one hurried her. They simply listened, because that is what friends do. As darkness settled over the orchard, Annie looked up at the stars. They were the very same stars she had watched through her attic window all those years. Yet somehow they seemed brighter now. Perhaps it was because she wasn't looking at them alone. And from that day forward, whenever a new Orchardkin arrived feeling frightened, lost, or forgotten, Attic Annie would be the first to greet them. She would take their hand and say, "Come along." The world can be a very different place than the one you remember, but there will always be room for you here in the orchard. And beneath the blossoms, surrounded by friends, Attic Annie finally found the home she had been searching for all along.